takes around like $80 to $85 of gas, which is expensive for me because I'm not getting that much pay.
Tonight, everyone is feeling the pinch of skyrocketing gas prices.
It was something to do. It kept me sane.
She does what she must to get through COVID.
Domestic violence isn't love. It's not. Like, love is kind, love is patient. It's not physical.
And a community grieves the loss of one of their own. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Fuel prices across the country are approaching levels that have never been seen before. People are scrambling to find the cheapest option for fuel, and gas stations are in a tough spot trying to make a profit. Here's a nationwide story on how fuel prices are affecting people across the country.
Depending where you live, you'll be hard-pressed to find gas at prices we've been used to seeing in recent months. In Vancouver, the price of gas surpassed $2 per litre, sitting at $2.09. That has newly retired Richard Newman on edge.
It's crazy. I just retired and they're going nuts. Can't afford it. Should have stayed working. I live on a busy street down there and I just noticed that it's quieter. It's a lot quieter, but the prices are going crazy.
In Alberta, prices of fuel are around $1.60 per litre. On-reserve gas stations like this one in Siksika Nation are usually kept busy with the savings First Nation citizens get. But the owners say even with the savings, there's been less cars pulling in.
It's affecting us in a way that we used to see a lot of families coming and going during the weekends, in the evenings. We don't see that a lot now. A lot of it is like, a lot of people I'd see 2-3 times a week. Maybe I'm just seeing once a week now because they're not traveling because gas prices are going up.
The war in Ukraine is driving up prices due to economic sanctions on Russian oil imports, and it is going to get way worse. Today, President Joe Biden announced the United States will ban imports of Russian fuel, oil, natural gas, and coal, so these prices could be around for a while. Canada doesn't import Russian oil, but it's a supply and demand business. Dan McTagg is the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy and has a website called Gas Wizard that shows current prices of fuel across Canada. He says the increase in fuel is not expected to stop anytime soon.
They're going to get a little bit more painful. We haven't seen the end, only because we're looking at not only going into the summer demand driving season, a shortage in oil, where demand is, post-COVID, where a lot of people playing catch up, is exceeding supply. And it's for that reason that we're likely to see gas prices move up, nationally, perhaps as much as another 15-20 cents a liter. But I don't want to sound flippant. The sky's the limit. We don't know how high this is going to go.
In Winnipeg, regular gasoline hit $1.63 per litre, while in southern Ontario it was approaching $1.60. That had people at the pumps in Ontario concerned.
It makes paying bills tight right now, and to and from work, I'm about an hour and 15-minute drive, so it's totally affecting us week to week.
So it takes around like $80 to $85 of gas, which is expensive for me because I'm not getting that much pay because of that, because I am an international student, so I am a part-time worker. So because of that, I'm not getting much of money. Most of my money is going in filling up the gases. Wow.
Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Well, Project Reconciliation is a 100% owned Indigenous group that invests in energy infrastructure. And they recently sent a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stating they are ready, willing, and able to buy the federally owned Trans Mountain Pipeline. APTN's Chris Stewart has that story.
For over 3 years, Project Reconciliation has been wanting to buy the Trans Mountain Pipeline. The pipeline expansion under construction will triple the oil volume sent from Alberta to British Columbia, from 300,000 to nearly 900,000 barrels a day. Project Reconciliation Senior Managing Director Stephen Mason says they have raised the capital needed through bonds to buy the pipeline entirely.
We are finance ready to purchase 100% of this pipeline on behalf of the 100% Indigenous ownership.
Mason says ownership will be through the 129 Indigenous communities that the pipeline is near or goes through. And no upfront financial investment is necessary from those communities. Robert Morin from the Enoch Cree Nation is the chair. He says that profits from the ownership will help create more independence.
There's a lot of communities that are hurting out there, and they need immediate impact. They need something to help them get through, whether it be housing, infrastructure, training and development of their youth, and business opportunities that are otherwise not available to them.
Even with the construction costs of the pipeline growing to $21 billion, Mason says the project is financially viable. And when oil and gas are replaced, he says the pipelines will not become obsolete.
This is the purchase by Indigenous peoples of a pipeline right-of-way that ultimately can be repurposed for non-hydrocarbon form of energy in the form of hydrogen, ammonia, that is the conduit and the gateway and the right-of-way to get the new energy base, non-carbon base, whenever that might happen, but it has Indigenous ownership from the beginning.
With the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, Mason says he believes record high prices for oil and gas will continue. The national average price for gas is $1.80 per liter.
Yes, we're paying more at the pumps, but it's been a difficult 7+ years for the Canadian resource sector, specifically the oil and gas. So I think this is personally, by no means am I a geopolitical expert. Where do I see the prices to go? Well, it's crystal ball on my crystal ball has been fractured, so many times. I can't give you a view, but as long as this conflict continues to go on and that the world's making Putin pay for what he's doing, it's going to result in higher prices at the pumps.
Project Reconciliation wants to purchase the pipeline before it is completed in late 2023. Several other Indigenous-led groups, such as Nesca Services and Chinook Pathways, are also looking to purchase the pipeline. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Well, we'd like to hear what you think about how the war in Ukraine is affecting fuel prices at home. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on our website. That's aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Well, while drivers in Canada are feeling the pinch at the pump, thousands more people are fleeing Ukraine and streaming into neighboring Central and Eastern European countries. According to the UN's refugee agency, 2 million people, mostly women and children, have now fled Ukraine since the beginning of the Russian invasion. The head of the agency warns that the initial burst is likely to be followed by a second wave of more vulnerable people. Authorities across Eastern Europe say they're struggling to accommodate the swelling wave. Well, in other news, a Blackfoot community in Treaty 7 is calling for more resources for women because they allege domestic violence recently took the life of one of their own. APTN's Tamara Pimentel has that story.
Members of Siksika Nation gathered to bless the home and honor the life of Marty Skelplock.
Many ways this could have been preventable, but my sister was one that sat in silence. She was one that you had to really push her to speak out.
Friends and family here say this is where her body was found on February 27th. RCMP put out a news release stating police responded to a report of an unresponsive female. She was found deceased and the circumstances surrounding her death are suspicious. The release also stated the Major Crimes Unit has taken charge of the investigation. But Skelplock's best friend, Dora Lynn McMaster, says her death is a result of domestic violence.
Domestic violence isn't love. It's not. Like, love is kind, love is patient. It's not physical. I know many, are afraid, but don't be afraid. There's support systems out there to help you.
Women do not deserve to be beat up in any way.
As the community remembers the loving mother of one son, many say more needs to be done to prevent stories like scalp locks.
We need a safe house. We need a place for women to go to seek help.
Marsha Wolfcaller is an advocate for women. She says Siksika has a homeless shelter and a men's shelter, but women don't have those same resources here.
We are way overdue for a safe house in our community. Our women have nowhere to go. Where they're going is off reserve, and oftentimes those are full to capacity.
Siksika Chief and Council told APTN a women's shelter has been in the proposal stage for years, but have limited government funding to make the safe house a reality. As Alberta RCMP investigates, many here say they will continue fighting to break this ongoing cycle.
Moving forward, we're not going to shut down now or here. We're going to keep going. My sister deserves the world, and we want to share her life with everybody, just knowing that there was more to her life than this. Her life was cut short.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Siksika.
And no one has been charged in that death. Time for a quick break. Coming up, a look at how some barriers are being addressed on this International Women's Day.
Indigenous women aren't seeing themselves reflected within those sectors as spaces where they may want to obtain an education and look at a career option in those sectors.
Welcome back. Today is International Women's Day. So the federal government announced $700,000 for 2 Indigenous-led initiatives. Just under $400,000 is for the Native Women's Association of Canada to address systemic barriers for Indigenous women with disabilities in federally regulated workplaces. While the Women in Leadership Foundation is getting close to $300,000 to look at why more Indigenous women are not leaders in banking, communications, transportation, and technology. Squamish Hereditary Chief Leanne Joe oversees the project.
Well, the big ones are, one, just attracting women to some of these sectors. I mean, the tech sector is transportation as well. Very male-dominated spaces. Not a lot of women, Indigenous women, aren't seeing themselves reflected within those sectors as spaces where they may want to obtain an education and look at a career option in those sectors.
For decades, the legacy of Quebec's bébé phantoms, or ghost babies, was a piece of hidden history, affecting dozens of families from remote First Nations. It's been nearly 6 months since Quebec passed a bill and hired a special commissioner to look into the story. Our reporter Lindsay Richardson got an update from her this week. Lindsay, good to see you again. Thanks for being with us. Right off the top here, maybe let's address what people are wondering, and that's, what are ghost babies?
Well, I mean, Dennis, it's a legitimate question about what is kind of a strange term, but the term ghost babies is used here in Quebec to describe any Indigenous child who disappeared or died after they were hospitalized off reserve. And this was, like you said, largely a hidden history here in Quebec until the hearings held as part of the Yank Commission, where dozens of stories from mainly Atikamekw and Innu communities started to surface, each one with very specific tragic details. A couple of examples include coffins being sent home with the lids screwed shut, or mothers who say their babies were taken away from them after birth and declared dead, but they never got to see a death certificate. So there are quite a few, and even more coming out now that Quebec's Bill 79 has power of law.
So some of these cases are decades old, 50, 60 years old now. How is this new bill helping?
Well, Bill 79 has a long and complicated title. We have dubbed it the Babies Law here in Quebec. And what it is a piece of access to information legislation that legally compels public institutions like churches or cemeteries or hospitals to hand over records when they are requested by the Quebec government. And on the other hand, it gives the Quebec government the power to now file complaints up the ranks if the institutions just flat out refuse to hand over the documents or claim that they don't have access to them.
So nearly 6 months in, do we have any idea on how it's working?
I guess one way to gauge the support of the success of Bill 79, Dennis, would just be in the sheer number of families that have come forward to seek the government's help. We spoke to Special Advisor Anne Panasuk earlier this week, and she did tell me that as of mid-February, about 55 families had come forward asking Quebec for help accessing these records. That's just coming out of the Innu communities in the east. Next up are the Atikamek communities, and there are at least 44 documented cases shared among them. So, I mean, it's a lot of information. It's difficult information to access. But Panasuk wanted to emphasize that even though they do have the backing of this law now, that it really is the families who are taking charge in the research process. Here's what she had to say on that.
C'est les familles qui décident. Hein? Qu'est-ce que les familles veulent savoir? Est-ce qu'elles veulent savoir juste où il est enterré? Est-ce qu'elles veulent savoir de quoi il est décédé? Est-ce qu'elles veulent exhumer le corps par la suite? Alors, c'est vraiment là, selon les demandes des parents.
So, Lindsay, sounds like there's still a ways to go. What's going to happen next?
Well, Panasuk said she's convinced that almost all remote communities in Quebec probably have similar stories to tell. So this tour of the communities will continue. They'll be moving west to the Algonquin communities and then north to the Inuit communities. But there is an interim report and some preliminary recommendations that are supposed to drop at the National Assembly by the end of this month. And we're told that that report will be made public in a ceremony held on a First Nation sometime after that. So definitely to be followed.
Certainly will. Lindsay, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you speaking with us about this.
Thanks, Dennis.
Time now for another quick break. Coming up, making dolls to pass the time during COVID lockdowns.
My first doll of that was this little girl, and she is carrying her moccasins and holding a feather. So, and on the board you can see it says "Every Child Matters."
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Check out this photo. It almost appears as though someone is cooking up the Northern Lights. As Kimberly Kirkness captured this incredible moment where the Aurora Borealis beautifully lights up the evening sky over this home in Tatasquiac Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. Send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the east coast, +3 with showers in Halifax, -1 in St. John's. 10 below in Nain, snow and -7 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. +3 in Montreal, -2 and flurries in Chibougamau. -3 with snow for Sault Ste. Marie, 0 and snow in North Bay. -6 with flurries for Thunder Bay, 12 below and snow in Sioux Lookout. -13 in God's Lake, Norway House and the Paw. 16 below with snow in Winnipeg, -13 and snow in Dauphin. Snow and -15 for Saskatoon and North Battleford. -14 with snow in Meadow Lake, 18 below and snow in Stony Rapids. Over in northern Alberta, -10 with snow in Fort McMurray, 2 below in Grand Prairie. -10 with snow in Lethbridge, 6 below and snow in Edmonton. Sunny and 8 for Vancouver, Victoria and Bella Coola. -2 in Prince George, +1 in Smithers. -14 with snow in Old Crow, 5 below in Whitehorse. -19 and snow for Yellowknife, +1 in Fort Liard. -25 for Sax Harbor and Polituck. -24 in Chesterfield, 22 below in Arviat. -23 in Arctic Bay and Joe Haven. Well, the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic kept people indoors under lockdown doing things like puzzles or binge watching Netflix. But for one retired care aide in Ontario, the isolation unleashed her creative side. Leanne Sanders has the story.
This is how I make my dolls. This is where I make my dolls.
Audrey, or Bill Wilson, as she's known to all her family and friends on Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, says her COVID hobby, creating Indigenous dolls, has brought her a lot of joy, and fans on social media also love them. Wilson made her first doll about 1.5 years ago, and they've evolved as Wilson perfects her craft.
So I keep her under glass. And but now I have that was 1.5 years ago, and now I'm making things like that.
The detailed dolls take up to 4 days to make, and she charges $125.
This is my first one that I've made with beadwork, and I made her with beadwork. She's not done yet, but she will be going to my daughter, and I'm going to be doing more of these with beadwork. And I don't know, some people tell me it's not enough. Some people tell me, oh, isn't that a lot? But it's my first time, and I'm just learning myself.
Wilson has shipped dolls across Canada to the United States and Germany. Her top seller is the Every Child Matters doll. It's important to her because her grandfather attended the residential school on her First Nation, where she says a ground-penetrating radar survey is expected later this year.
And my first doll of that was this little girl, and she is carrying her moccasins and holding a feather. So, and on the board you can see it says Every Child Matters.
Wilson has fibromyalgia and has been retired for 5 years. She says her hobby has helped her keep busy during the pandemic.
It was something to do. It kept me sane. It's keeping me sane during COVID times, and being inside all the time and everything. So my craft room is my domain.
Leanne Sanders, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Awesome story. Wish I unleashed my creative side instead of watching all that Tiger King. Well, now, nearly 3 decades into her acting career, Crystal Lightning says she finally found a role that she could sink her teeth into. Lightning's portrayal of Maggie on the show Trickster catapulted her career and garnered her a Canadian Screen Award. We discuss her career tonight on a new episode of Face to Face.
I like being the vessel for the storyteller. I just love everything about it. I love that you get to play different characters, and the beautiful thing about acting too is you get to take all of your emotions, all of your life experiences, your traumas, your happinesses, your anger, and turn it into art. That's beautiful. It's another form of therapy, I think.
Right. Well, as you can see, Crystal's pretty awesome. You can watch our entire interview with Crystal Lightning right here in just a few minutes' time. And be sure to tune in here tomorrow live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's when Melissa puts the harsh realities of gang life and street life in focus. You won't want to miss that. And of course, for more on anything you've seen here, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. Dennis Ward, thanks for tuning in. Stick around. Face to Face is next. Have a great night.